Morning folks, welcome to Bedford Autodrome and the UK press launch of the brand new 2021 Kawasaki ZX10R Ninja. So we have had a pretty fab day here at a track that I've never been to, which is always nice to tick one off the list. And we've predominantly been riding this bike, which is the KRT Replica Colour Scheme 2021 ZX10R. And we've also been riding the RR version, which is the homologation special. Have to be careful when I say that. And that is limited to 500 units. So the stock bike here is 15,799. The RR, which is parked down the garage, which you might be looking at some riding footage of now, is £24,799. And it is predominantly for race teams, BSB teams, and also privateer racers, track days, and those that just want something a little bit special when they're out on the road. So these bikes are going to be in dealers in early June, I have been told. They're not in the UK yet. We have been the first people in the UK to actually swing a leg over them, which is really, really nice. Straight into it. So what's new about the bike? I'm going to start by just going through the engine of the bike. So really, to list all of the changes that have been made to this, I would have to go on for quite a long time. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to go through some high-level changes. So we've got a completely new oil delivery system and oil cooling system on the machine. We have also got finger follower valve actuation as well, which enables it to rev harder and faster and spin up quicker. It is also, of course, a Euro 5 compliant engine. Now, power is not massively different to the previous ZX10R, so we're still making just over 200 horsepower, so about 203 bhp, and about the same amount of torque, although the torque now is a little bit lower down the rev range and a little bit more user-friendly for road riders, funnily enough. You'd think with all the championship medals that Kawasaki have won on this thing in the World Superbike, they'd be chasing World Superbike and track glory in the BSB, but actually what they've done with this model, and I'll go through it a little bit more later on, is they've made it a little bit better on the road for the everyday rider. So another change that's gone on in the bowels of the bike is that they have changed the gear ratios for the first couple of gears. They've made them shorter. They were really quite tall before, and they were the same on the last generation and the same on the previous generation ZX10R. And again, what that's done, added to the change in the torque delivery, it has made this bike feel a lot more eager off the line in those first couple of gears. It always had a tendency to rev, and it always wanted to rev. And you did have to work it, and you still do, but that initial urgency when you're just pulling away and you're just pulling out of the pit lane here at the Bedford Autodrome, it does sort of lunge at the first corner much more than I remember the previous generation ZX10R ever doing. And then when you are up to speed and we are out on the track, this thing just wails all the way up to the red line like a banshee, but really, really genuinely does come alive above 10,000 RPM. It's such an enthralling motor to ride, just because the way it revs, the way that it builds speeds, and because it's just so buttery smooth, and overall it's just a lovely inline 4-cylinder unit. It doesn't really want for anything. It's a nice middle ground for the road and for the track, and you can still do all the things that you'd want to do with it if you were just going for a bespoke track setup. So just going to go very quickly through the changes to the suspension, the brakes, and also talk about how this bike has handled today on the fairly bumpy Bedford Autodrome circuit. So the suspension that you see, it looks from the outside the same as the previous generation ZX10R. So we've got Showa balance-free front forks on this thing, and we have also got a balance-free rear cushion, as Showa like to call it. So what has changed, and this is thanks to the input of a certain Mr. Jonathan Ray, who I hear is a little bit handy on one of these things, is that they've changed the kind of the handling dynamics of the bike. It's the way that the front suspension and the rear suspension sort of work together. The easiest way that I can describe it to you is that on this bike, when you're braking into really slow corners from high speed, the bike pitches onto its nose a little bit more than the previous generation did. So the rear shock is slightly firmer and the front forks are slightly softer. Don't let that make you think that it is any less accurate or you get any less feel through the front end. Quite the opposite. It really forces the front tyre into the tarmac. And because you can trail braking right up to the apex of the corner, you can really feel the front tyre biting into the tarmac, and you can use all of that grip to make the bike turn really, really quickly. I was impressed with the poise, and also the kind of the support under braking was just really phenomenal. You have of course got a really, really well set up steering damper on there as well, but overall the braking, that front end feel on this thing was just absolutely phenomenal. We are of course riding on slick tyres, as you can see down there, but I have no doubt that on the road that you would still get that same translation onto the front end, the pitching forward and the weight transfer onto the front. It was really eye-opening for me, having ridden the previous generation ZX10R, that this bike just felt so much better in that area. So obviously it is a modern day superbike, sports bike. It is absolutely chock full of electronics. And the best thing about this version of the ZX10 is you don't have to change it all through a little tiddly diddly LCD dash. We have got the clearest and easiest to read dash on two wheels, which is the same setup and display that is used across bikes like the Z650 and also the Z900 and some of the supercharged Z models as well in the Kawasaki range. It's really clear to read, really simply laid out, and all of the switch cubes and changing the modes and everything else was actually really, really easy on this bike I found today. So we've got full cornering ABS, we've got engine braking control, we have got the Kawasaki quick shifter, we've got launch control, we've got IMU control, we've got cornering traction control, you've got power modes, and you have got the Kawasaki cornering management function, which I still haven't truly fathomed what it actually means. Altogether, it means that you've got all of the settings that you'd ever need for road and fast track riding, and you're not really going to want for anything else. Just while we're on that, I just want to take a moment to also talk about the RR, the homologation special, which we've also ridden. I didn't get much time on it because the weather has been a little bit sketchy and the bike was very much in demand. So I got about 4 laps on the RR, and the difference was night and day. The biggest change that I could feel when I was riding was thanks to the wheels that were fitted. It's got Mazashini lightweight cast wheels, and it has also got really lightweight titanium panel internals within the engine, and DLC coated pistons, and all sorts of lovely MotoGP and World Superbike style goodness going on in there. And to me, it just felt like a completely different bike out here at Bedford. It was turning really, really sharply, it was stopping quicker, and it was also getting down the straights much quicker than the standard bike. That said, it is around £10,000 more. Did it feel £10,000 faster? I don't know, but if you're looking to make the stock bike as high spec as the RR version, I think you would probably pay a hell of a lot more money than £10,000. So what do we like about the ZX10R Ninja? First and foremost, the internal changes to the engine. So that's kind of the updates for Euro 5. They've done that without losing power, which is fantastic. The torque delivery is, I think it's much better than the previous model, and also the changes to the gearing translate to a better overall motorcycle, regardless of whether you're going to be riding on track or on the road. The front end feel and stability, I haven't mentioned it, but it could also be thanks to this new aerodynamic fairing. So there's 16% more downforce through the front end on this bike than the previous generation machine. That, coupled with the revised suspension settings, thanks to Mr. Jonathan Ray, I think it's just an absolute winner if you're looking for the ultimate track day tool. I also love the engine, and I have always liked the engine in the ZX10R, but today on this circuit I wouldn't have really wanted to be riding anything else. It's buttery smooth, it's got all the power, and it screams, it makes a lovely, lovely noise. The throttle connection as well, it just gives you everything that you need to go out and make the best out of your riding ability, and that's what I've really found today. I didn't have to work hard to build the speed, and it was very easy to get along with and very easy to get to know. So for all the changes that have been made to this bike, and as I've mentioned a couple of times, some of those changes, quite a lot of those changes, there's more than I've mentioned by the way, have been made thanks to Mr. Johnny Ray and his World Championship ambitions. You'd think that all of these changes would have made the ZX10 a slightly worse road bike and maybe a slightly better race bike, as he is predominantly going to be riding out on track and wanting to win on the track. But it's actually not the case. The screen is 40 millimeters taller. It sounds like a small amount, but it makes that bubble really, really easy to get behind. And the cockpit of the bike feels really spacious. It's quite at odds with the way that some of the superbikes in this class are going to. You'd expect the ZX10 for this year to feel sort of stiffer, sharper, more focused and more of a race bike. But actually I think all of the changes are translating into making this probably the ultimate all-round road bike and track day bike if you're looking for a jack of all trades. And don't think that I'm saying, in me saying that, it's saying that this is going to be any less of a race bike for you track day sort of heroes and you club racing sort of folk out there that are looking for a bike they can turn into it, because you've got all the adjustability, you've got all the settings, and if you've got all the money, you can also go for the RR version. Anyway, there is going to be a full written editorial review going out on Visordown, so please get yourself over to the website and check that one out when it goes live. I've been Toad, thanks very much for watching.